Chapter 6. Buffalo. Buffalo! When I heard the words, a hair on my neck stands up. I am filled with both excitement and fear. Buffaloes can be very peaceful animals, even shy, but when they stampede, they are as deadly as any creature I've seen. Once, I saw a buffalo trample trees like they were grass. Not too long after my encounter with that oversized beaver, I came head to head with a buffalo. It started out as a great evening. Pierre Crozet, one of the pirates, played his fiddle, and the men sang and stomped their feet and shouted around the campfire. Everyone was enjoying the fun. Then, one by one, the men began to turn in. Pretty soon, everyone was asleep except the sentinel and me. Many nights I stayed up with the sentinel. Men don't smell too well, so I keep my nose alert for any animals that might be prowling around the camp, especially bears and wildcats. This particular night, I strolled around the edge of the camp one last time. The men were sleeping and there were several campfires going. Everything seemed in order. A raccoon or maybe an opossum wandered by, but that was not unusual. I lay down in front of the captain's tent and rested my head on my paws, and I listened to the night sounds, mostly crickets and owls, nothing worth getting up for. I closed my eyes, leaving my nose and ears to stay alert. I heard it before I smelled it. A splash in the water. Something swimming our way. I waited and I listened. More splashing. It was a large, clumsy swimmer, definitely not a beaver. Maybe an antelope. I lifted my head. More splashing. Closer. Getting out of the water. Stepping on our canoes. Definitely a big animal. Then I smelled it. Buffalo. This was a lone buffalo by the water's edge. The sentry was not far from me, and he heard it too. I stood and surveyed the campsite again. The captain's tent was surrounded by sleeping men. I felt the ground vibrate. The buffalo was rampaging in our direction. The sentry stood now. We were both looking toward the water. It was one of those moments when time stands still. Suddenly, the buffalo appeared on the edge of the camp, charging directly toward a group of sleeping men. The sentry jumped into action. He waved his arms, screamed, and tried to scare the buffalo away. I barked. The buffalo trampled one of the fires. Then he turned and thundered past a group of sleeping men, barely missing their heads. Our moment of relief was replaced with true horror. The buffalo was now headed straight for the captain's tent. The sentry yelled again, but he was behind the buffalo. His yells made no difference. It was up to me. If I didn't stop the buffalo, the men sleeping in front of the tent would be trampled, and Lewis and the others inside the tent would be crushed. I jumped in front of the men and barked as I had never barked before. I barked, growled, and hissed, all in a matter of seconds. The buffalo's black eyes were intense. He didn't stop. I barked again, this time jumping up onto my back paws and thrashing in the air with my large front paws. If ever I wanted to be bear dog, it was now. A flash of confusion crossed the buffalo's face. He swerved to the right and ran out of the camp. He missed the men just by inches. The men jumped up and grabbed their guns. They took aim at anything and everything around them, but the buffalo was gone. When the excitement died down, Lewis joined me at the campfire, and he bent down and scratched my neck. I knew what he was going to say before he said it. Good job, Seaman. Last night we were all alarmed by a large buffalo bull, which swam over from the opposite shore. He then, alarmed, ran up the bank in full speed directly towards the fires and was within 18 inches of the heads of some of the men who lay sleeping before the sentinel could alarm him and make him change his course. Still more alarmed, he now took his direction immediately towards our lodge. My dog saved us by chasing him to change his course a second time, which he did by turning a little to the right, and was quickly out of sight, leaving us by this time all in an uproar with our guns in our hands. Meriwether Lewis, May 29th, 1805.